pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Let's start with the approval of the minutes from the last meeting on February 8th.
I move for the approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Moving on. For the report section, are we going to move ahead with your report or wait till the end, Tammy?
We can wait till the end.
Okay. So we're going to proceed with that whole section. So new business. We're going to discuss Beau Connor Park Playground discussion. Mr. Jake Abel.
Madam Chairwoman, is it okay if I speak from here, or would you prefer me at the front?
Wherever you're comfortable.
Okay.
I think you have your own mic, so.
Okay, here's fine. But I appreciate you guys putting this issue on the agenda for this evening. As many of you are aware, Beau Connor had renovations completed, I believe, 4 years ago, maybe that 4 to 5 year range, and that goes. Those renovations date back to a previous Board of Commissioners with my predecessor, Commissioner Curley at the time, spearheading those renovations. What was not included in those renovations was the playground. So it touched every aspect of the park, but for whatever reason, and it just didn't, the playground wasn't part of the scope of the project. I think, and then you go back to 2020, and since 2020, I believe there are at least 2 occasions where equipment has broken on the playground, where it's had to be taped off, restricted, and then, the neighbors in West Wayne aren't able to use the playground or that part of the playground for weeks, months at a time until replacement parts are ordered, received, and then the repairs are completed. So, I think it looking long term, it's in the best interest, I think, of the park and of the neighborhood, that if we look and have a discussion about, renovating the playground now comprehensively, instead of piecemealing it and doing it one piece of playground equipment at a time, which I assume would be more costly, and it'll become even more costly as you prolong and push it off into the future.
Is there any comment from anyone on the board regarding Jake's comments? Any other additional comment? Tammy, do you have any comment?
I guess and certainly we obviously stand for trying to get everything as up to date and as usable for everybody. The question I would have is just making sure that in the larger scheme that we're not passing over other places that may be in need or be overdue. And I don't know if we have, Tammy, have any kind of timeline on that as to other parks that may have been a long time since they've been replaced or might have dire needs. And that's not to suggest I'm trying to sidetrack this, Commissioner. It's just obviously a question that I would have with limited resources, whether or not we're leaving some other park out.
So a couple of things. First of all, the playground is 27 years old at Beau Connor Park. No doubt about it. It's definitely one of our oldest. Odoriccio Park is right there as well, which is one I know we're actively working on. I think it was built in 1995. So those 2 playgrounds specifically, along with Cowan and North Wayne, are and have been in the pipeline for a long time. As a matter of fact, Beau Connor Park Playground was in the pipeline for the bond and the borrowing in 2016. But when that dollar amount was whittled back to a palatable amount that was going to be approved by the board in what would have been, I guess, 2015 at that point, that was one of the parts of the project that was removed because it's a big expense. So, I obviously can't speak for how or why that happened, but I know as part of our process, it was one that came out. But definitely has been a playground that's been in our capital plan, which, as you guys know, you've seen it a lot of times. There's about 50, 60 projects that we have in the capital plan that's there. It's a heavily used site, heavily, dense area of the township. Certainly would qualify, given its age and its wear, to be replaced. So I just think that, again, limited funding, we have to prioritize. But if there is an option on the forefront to get that playground down, get it completed, get it, renovated, would be an amazing thing. Not only for the residents, that are there nearby in the neighborhoods, but, those on that side of town, that would use it. It's an expensive project. I'm sure there's ways to refine it a bit. So I guess we'll be looking to the board to prioritize projects as we move along. And I guess we just would have to make a determination, is Odoricio more, is that more eminent since we're down the road in improvements there? Or, does another project like Beauconnor, come before that, or does it come along with that? I think those are all decisions that we have to make, in lieu of the funding. And that would be something we'd be looking to the Board of Commissioners as we go through the budget process, to continue to put money towards that plan, the growing plan.
Yeah, and if I could just add a couple comments. I just want to be clear. I'm not asking for Beauconnor to bypass any other project. I've got Odoricio in the 6th Ward as well, and I will be an advocate for both parks. So I'm not saying one is more important than the other. They're both past due, as Tammy mentioned, and they're both deserving projects. My request would be if the Parks and Rec Board could follow a similar plan as you're doing with Odoricio and start holding neighbor meetings to get an idea of what type of improvements they would be looking for. And I've kind of prefaced it with the neighbors saying, let's please keep the scope of the project to the playground, which gives you a better advantage of moving this forward. Odoricio is those discussions are going to be much larger than just the playground, because there's several amenities in that park that need to be replaced. Beauconnor, thankfully, had those renovations done a few years back, so it's really just the playground at this point. But if the neighbors can start having some opportunities to meet with the board and have discussions and be able to convey their wishes, and you guys can start to sketch out a plan, I think from there we can look at price ranges and start to figure out timelines.
The only thing I just want to interject to the process. I know a lot of the board members here have been along for the ride for a lot of years, and we know every year we have a conversation about the capital plan. So I think in doing that, it would be great concurrently to know how it's going to be funded, or have the hope that there's going to be funding. Because I know every year there's a lot of projects that are vying for a little sliver of money. We also, we know we have this growing list of things with regards to Radnor Activity Center, other projects that sit out there with regards to the facilities. So the only thing that I would say is it would be really helpful for this board to have some direction on funding and where that's going to come from and what might be available, so that you guys know, headed into budget 2025, we know we have X amount of dollars that are potential. What do we have available? And then start to look at this list that you guys have looked at for many, many years and begin to, rank those projects on priority. Health and safety related items have always come to the forefront, things that we know that are in a bad condition, a poor condition, where it might impact life and safety.
Tammy, real quickly, what's the general ballpark of a playground? I know Enki out here was replaced, and that might be bigger than what would work over at Beauconnor, but I know that was a couple years ago, and there had to be replacements of the soft stuff instead of the mulch. What's a general ballpark of playgrounds? I know that's a very big range that you can
Right,
throw
so
out
it would
there.
be, so generally the investment, the recommendation of the capital lifeline by, in this case, it's like, we use Play World systems for a lot of our equipment and our playgrounds, landscape structures, is really in the 20 to 25-year range. So we have several playgrounds that are outside of the range. And as Commissioner Abel had mentioned, we have had actually 3 repairs that were done. We had 2 sliding boards that were replaced that became cracked because really over time, you know, the moisture, the freeze and the thaw, the UV breaks those pieces down. We had a tube, like a little tube area, like a bubble that cracked and broke. We had to have that replaced. We also invested recently into a step, like an additional step to step down off of a piece of equipment to make it easier for young children to get up and down. So we have made a significant investment also since 2020 on equipment. And Playworld, who is the manufacturer of this particular piece of equipment, has been great about trying to, you know, customize these pieces as we go along. And they have even acknowledged that, you know, at some point, you know, we're not going to be able to have these pieces fabricated any longer. Not to mention that the unit itself, it's not accessible in any way. You know, a person requiring some sort of, you know, wheelchair access, accessibility, it does not exist for that park. I know we're trying to move a lot of our parks into that direction with regards to amenities. It's the law. We have to follow it. So, you know, doing a renovation there is going to be more than just the playground. There's some additional requirements we're going to have to follow that'll go along with it. But, you know, no doubt about it. You know, we have some great playgrounds sort of, you know, strategically placed across the township. We've got Clemacrone over on the east side of the township, and we've got, you know, Enki here, a little more central, and then having another, you know, very, you know, well-enhanced, inclusive, you know, playground on the west side of the township would be, you know, a wonderful thing.
So it's hard to put like a monetary range of what this all could run and what you're envisioning between just the playground and then just the ADA requirements that go with it. There's not really like a broad range of what
So
we're
the
talking
placeholder
about.
that's in the budget right now is $450,000. But, you know, as Commissioner Abel had mentioned, you know, once you start engaging with residents and you hear what folks want to see, we know we just did this exercise with Fenimore Woods. You know, we got into, well, actually, let me back up. Let me use a different example. So we started, when we did it with Odoricio, we heard that folks were interested in a nature-based space. They wanted it to be inclusive. They were looking to have a water feature, spray ground feature. I know we'll talk about that a little bit later. So there's a lot of like sort of wants and wishes, and it's like, okay, let's bring this into something that's manageable. And I think understanding the amount of money we have to work with is where that kind of starts versus just an open canvas.
My only concern is, like you said, as long as either you work simultaneously with Autovicio or, you know, and making sure that none of the money gets zapped from Autovicio. It's already a contention amongst the neighbors that it's the last one there. And then if they go up and, you know, and this becomes more of a priority, there'll be some yelling and screaming. And I'm not saying don't do it, but I'm just saying we just want to be careful going forward and how it is laid out so that, you know, Autovicio isn't hit again by something else going forward by this. There was some delay for Autovicio in making sure that Bo Connor made it to the top. And I know that's not your aim, but I just wanted, for the record, to be said, you know, that's all.
If I could make maybe a suggestion to the chair, maybe it's a little earlier than we may have considered doing it, but since we have the 2 new members to sort of, maybe we, as a board, redivide up the parks in terms of the steward program, and then just get an early start to reviewing and sort of categorizing things like real, short-term must, high priority, midterm priority, long-term priority, with the idea is if the funding is there to fund any one of those and just start visiting the parks, prioritizing such projects. I mean, I think the playground, especially at Bo Connor, in light of the Little League being there and a lot of younger siblings who end up over there playing just simply because of it, but also because of its location. It has a strategic interest in everything, but just put together that priority list to allow it to be presented to the board sufficiently advance of capital budgeting may sort of get this process moving, at least thought of.
Andy, I think it's a great point. You read my mind. For those we have 2 new board members, and we will redefine where everybody wants to cover, because each board member has a responsibility of a number of parks to cover. Within that, they go out, they take pictures, they pay attention, they ask questions. So I think it's an excellent start for us, and I think, Commissioner Abel, I think it's a good place for us to go for the next conversation, because prioritization for all of the parks in Radnor Township is where we're focused. But you're right, I think we need to make sure that safety is concerned as well. Sounds like it's been addressed in terms of the issues. But Andy, excellent point. So we will redefine with our we're very excited to have 2 new members on the board. We'll redefine and go from there in terms of coverage and go from there. So I think that's good, but I appreciate your comments, Commissioner. Going to move on to the next.
Yeah, just one.
Sure.
One just follow-up comment. I think Commissioner Abel's suggestion of at least having the dialogue, seems like we do have a fairly regular path we take on these things, and that is to have very large input sessions and get a sense of the community, what folks are looking for, and then we try to whittle it down into more concrete things. It would not hurt to start that process, because it's inevitable we're going to have to pass through that way. We're a little bit ahead timing-wise with Odoricio from that, but there's no harm in getting that moving, although I certainly agree with Tammy that we really kind of need to have, we don't have any funding for the little larger Odoricio project at this point. We do have some grants and some other segments that can be funded. I think it makes sense to get that process at least moving, because 27 years is a long time, and certainly seems as though that playground's in need of some updating, as well as others. And I share Mr. Child's points on Odoricio. That's one I'd like to see not get bumped for another project unless there's some grave safety issue somewhere that really mandates it.
Thank you.
And just one last time,
Sure.
let me reemphasize, I'm not advocating bumping any park projects. I want to see both Odoricio and Beauconnor done while I'm still on the board.
Your comments are definitely noted. We understand. We're with you. All right, we're going to move on. We have an agenda to follow. So the next item is the Radnor Activity Center at Sulpizio Gym. We're going to ask for an update, which I think Tammy has. I personally have had some experience with this one, so it's all you.
All of our wonderful basketball coaches and volunteers, thank you for your service.
Absolutely.
I know you spend a lot of time at the facility. I think I probably reported in my last 100 department reports about the water intrusion. There's a select few of you who have had the opportunity to actually see it. I'm sorry. But so just to give you an update, as part of the 2023 township budget approval, there was, in concept, there was the funding that was passed in what really was moved along as a tax increase that year. So we're going back a year to borrow money to make improvements on the facilities, referring to those that are Radnor Activity Center at Sulpizio Gym in downtown Wayne, which is located right behind the firehouse. So that's what we're talking about here, as well as the Township building here in this location, and as well as the Public Works garage right over off of Cromer Road near the Rite Aid. So that's where our Public Works individuals and staff operate out of, where all the equipment is stored. All 3 buildings have significant issues in terms of their roofs need replaced. They're beyond their lifeline. I don't think any of them are as bad as the rack, but we know for sure firsthand, those of us who've been over there and have seen it, that there's definitely a significant amount of water intrusion, that the back roof especially has reached the end of its lifeline. So in any case, there's this borrowing that, of a bond that has been funded, in which hasn't actually transacted yet. We haven't physically done that yet, because we've been in the process of studying the buildings and looking a little bit more closely in the first phase of what has been a sustainability and audit, energy savings audit. So we had engaged a firm that took a look at all 3 buildings, basically to see like what kind of things can we do to save on the energy costs, reduce the carbon impact, things like that, replacing lighting into LED. We know a lot of the lighting structures in all 3 buildings, could really use those upgrades, looking at things like solar. So if we're gonna take the opportunity to replace the roofs, at this point, it's, worthwhile to take a look at solar. So they prepared a report. In fact, that report is gonna be shared with the Board of Commissioners on Monday, March 25th. At their meeting. So they're gonna basically talk about their findings and go through that. And then the next step for all of the buildings is to then start to engage in a comprehensive improvements plan, and then borrow the money once, the determination of the costs and what those are gonna be, borrow the money to get those improvements done. The additional thing that the board is actually gonna see on Monday night, and taking it at a next step more quickly with Radnor Activity Center, is to get the process started to do a comprehensive improvements plan there sooner. So I wanted to update this board just so you know that's coming. I know, we've kind of talked about Radnor Activity Center a little bit on the side as part of my monthly reports, but it hasn't actually been an agenda item over the years. Now that there's a process that's moving quickly to hopefully get some renovations going in that facility, especially since the ailing roof is really, it's something that has to be done soon. In fact, I think a lot of you were probably aware that we did have to shut down a portion of the gym because of the just questions about the structure on the back side of the roof. So there's basically several roofing systems that go across the top of the rack. There's 3 specifically, the one to the back, which actually covers the part of the building where there's 2 bathrooms. There's one that's the accessible bathroom, there's one that is the men's bathroom. That back part of the facility we've had to shut down and move to just the front bathroom of the facility and turn that into a single-use bathroom with accessibility to be able to obviously meet the needs of the facility because it's used so often. So that's causing us to move very quickly and engage a firm. So I'll be asking the board for authorization to engage a firm to basically put together a comprehensive renovations plan. That way we can get moving, at least hopefully in a first phase, to get the building envelope secured at Radnor Activity Center. So it's not really just the roof, or the roofs, plural, but it's also the building envelope, the windows. We know we have masonry breakdown on the perimeter, especially on the east side, where we see that water intrusion, and get a plan together. So for those of you who don't know, we lease the building from Radnor School District, and we are obliged to make those improvements based on that lease. So I think we'll probably be talking about that a little bit more on Monday night at the commissioners meeting, but I wanted to make sure at least the Parks and Recreation Board has an update that it is moving. It may come back to you at some point for some review and recommendation, but I'll certainly be keeping you updated along the way.
Tammy, just one question. Will it be closed during the renovations? I know that a lot of groups heavily rely on that. Is there any idea that you have that it will be closed?
I do believe we're going to be closed for a period of time because we are talking about the main roof structure as well. HVAC, the HVAC units are at the end of their lifeline, so now's the time, to get those done. And especially with a lot of work going on in the facility, there could be a lot of debris and dust because there's not a whole lot of layers that separate the roofing systems from the inside of the gym. So I will believe there will be a limitation to usage, and it's unfortunate, but I think the end result is something that turns out a great building that's going to be, free of water on the, in certain areas. I know our groups are really vigilant about helping us out with that, and we work closely with Public Works to get over there and get things cleaned up as it happens, to keep the building safe, of course. So I would expect there would be a shutdown.
Any other questions from anybody on the board regarding Tammy's update?
One question. Is there also problems with groundwater coming up there too? I seem to recall in the past.
That's something that we we are going to study as part of that. So that'll be part of that analysis. We know that there's significant flooding issues in downtown Wayne. I think everybody is well aware of that, even though we've made major improvements and strides over the years from a stormwater standpoint. Obviously the South Wayne parking lot recently, and some other projects that have gone along. There is humidity measuring that we have done under the flooring, especially when we had it replaced. So we know that those readings fluctuate. But it's definitely something that we're gonna have to take a closer look at. But we don't see water coming up, like water doesn't come in and come up. Like, that's not something that we see, just to make sure that's clear.
I appreciate it, because there's water everywhere, so I kind of lost track of where it was all coming from. I know we have roof problems, window problems, and
Most
I
of it's
recall there
coming
was
from
under
above.
the floor problems. I didn't know where the source
Right.
was.
Most of it's coming from above. And so the flooring can fluctuate anyways. It's maple, it's new, there's definitely changes in pressure and things like that. But overall humidity regulation in the facility is something that does need to be controlled better. And that would be part of that systems upgrade within the facility as we get moving and taking a closer look at what we can do, where we can do it with regards to the mechanical systems. We'll be looking at plumbing, all kinds of things as part of a comprehensive review.
Thank you.
If it's authorized, so I just want to couch that. It's not something that's been authorized by the board at this point, but they'll be reviewing it on Monday, the 25th.
Thank you, Tammy. Appreciate the update. I was personally there and can attest to everything she saw, as I'm the commissioner for the boys' 8th grade basketball team. So, but I think it's good that we're taking a look at it. And I also think the climate has changed quite a bit, Tammy, over the past few years, even alone with all the water and everything. So it all makes sense. Any other comments, or we're going to move on? Not trying to rush everybody, just trying to keep us on schedule. Radnor Township Comprehensive Plan Update, a vision for Radnor 2035. Update on the survey results, which hopefully everyone in Radnor Township participated in when the time was open.
So this is more informational for the board. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. I do have the opportunity to serve on the steering committee with regards to the comp plan update. So there have been several meetings that have been taking place in the last year. As you know, there's the survey. There were 500 respondents to the survey, by the way. I just wanted to make sure that the board and members of the public who are paying attention, they know when they go to radnor.com, if you scroll through this bar right here, you can go to the link to radnor2035.com. So if you click here and you jump to this website, it'll just tell you where you're going. You can kind of speed it along by hitting the link. If you jump over here, there's lots of great information about the process and what's going on for folks who want to read more. I definitely would encourage the board to, take a look at it. Again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but I want to make sure that you guys are aware where to find the information. There was an update on the survey that was given to the Board of Commissioners I think it was 2 meetings ago. If you jump to the library and you jump to see results, well, you'll see the results here under the presentation. I'm not going to scroll through it and go verbatim. The presentation was given to the commissioners. It was on February 26th. You guys can go back and watch it. But I do want to call out some of the things within the survey that came back that really impact this board. And those are items that have to do with some of the priorities and the key topics, the key takeaways, where feedback had been given from members of the public. And a lot of those had to do with trails and open space and the value of trails and open space. Not only that, but the connectivity through Radnor Township and making sure that people can get safely through the neighborhoods, to parks, to trails, to access trails, to get to key locations throughout the township, which we know sidewalks. Every project we've talked about in the last several years, sidewalks are definitely one of the big ones. Historical preservation was another one, and you all led the way with this with Fenimore Woods. I know we're going to talk about that a little bit later, in preserving the stable building. So that's something where there was a high amount of value in terms of Radnor's historic buildings, community resources, sports, recreation, fields, facilities, things like that were very popular within the survey. So those are going to continue to get more conversation as the plan detail comes together. There's going to be a committee that's going to be formed that's different from the subcommittee, and then there's going to be committee and community meetings that are going to take place. So if you're interested and you want to get involved, or you know people that want to get involved, I just want to put that out there and put it on your radar. And again, I don't want to spend a lot of time on it tonight, but I just want to make sure everybody's aware that within that plan, folks who answered the survey spoke a lot about our parks. They spoke a lot about open space and trails and how vital those resources are to the Radnor community.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Are there any comments from anyone on the board or questions for Tammy regarding that? I think we've all been involved with that. No? Okay. Thank you for that, the update as well. I'm going to move to our item number 6, which of old business. First, talking about concerns about dogs at the Willows Park, Skunk Hollow Trails. We're going to ask for an update and a review of the next steps for the ordinance implementation.
All right. I just wanted to give a little bit of background, especially for our 2 new members. This is a topic that we had been talking about for several years, since October of 2020, where the Parks and Recreation Board heard a presentation from a former member with regards to dogs and concerns about the dogs, particularly being off-leash at Skunk Hollow. We had a lot of meetings, 30 plus in that time frame, several very specific meetings to dogs in parks, and having lots of discussions in general across other parks, but once we started really getting moving along, the concentration really came on Skunk Hollow Park, and ultimately led to the formation of Ordinance 2024-01, which was a recommendation that was made by this board. I just wanted to get to the motion that you all passed in December. Essentially requiring dogs to be on leash at the Willows and Skunk Hollow on Saturdays and Sundays from noon until the park closes at dusk, and on the established township holidays, which is a schedule that is approved by the Board of Commissioners every year in around about November, and then continue to evaluate that particular policy every year. So I think you guys had recommended 2 years. When ultimately it came before the board, it was determined that 1 year was the time frame that would be evaluated. And then in addition, as there were preset events that our department has going on in Skunk Hollow, we would actually close the park down to dogs, which we've only done one time. We have the Willows Park and Skunk Hollow Trails scavenger hunt every year with preschoolers. It's a short event. I have a time frame here noted. It's going to take place in 2024, coming up again. So I don't see this becoming too obtrusive to users. We really don't do a ton of events out on the trails, but this is one where it seemed to be appropriate, and especially based on feedback that we've gotten from participants, and we do get about 150 participants on the day of the event. So lots of families out there enjoying the trails with little ones. So just to back up real quick, just to kind of show the overview, the parking areas that we have and the boundaries at the park. One of the discussion points was also just the reiteration and establishment that the Willows is not a permitted space for dogs. So I'm showing the outline of the property there that really represents the Willows Park. So I'm going to just take that off for a second and kind of point. You guys know where the parking lot is and the mansion is. I'm not sure if I guess my cursor doesn't come up on there. I'll put the red back over the property of the Willows, and then obviously where, we currently have the dogs that are, kind of able to be in the Skunk Hollow Park and run in this area has traditionally been the location that you see here in yellow. The only exception is the parking lot. We have flexibility in the parking lot, so actually it sits in the Willows, and it sits right in the Willows property, but obviously parking's limited, so we still allow all of the dog owners and people using the park to park there, with no issue. So I just wanted to make sure the boundaries were clear. We have rules and signage throughout the park, trying not to be too obtrusive about the willows and the limitations on park, but we want to continue to get the word out. I have interface on a regular basis with the Willows Park Executive Director. It sounds like things are going well, things are improving. We've taken some strides to put up some, like a little yellow chain with a sign, it basically says no dogs beyond this point when you come from where the mulch piles are to the trail that goes right in behind the mansion. People are doing a really good job of going back up to the Skunk Hollow Trail, finishing off, getting out through the rest of the trail and back to the parking lot, and not cut through the mansion, because that's where part of the issue has been, is just events going on, activities are happening, and, we have actually some pictures and evidence of dogs, coming in the mansion and running through the mansion during some of the events that have taken place. It's something we're trying to mitigate so that they can be successful in their operation and their delivery of what they're trying to achieve at the facility. So some of the changes just we're evaluating and looking at now that the ordinance was passed. We obviously want to continue to reiterate no dogs, coming onto the Willows property. We're going to add a couple more signs and posts. I'm not sure if I can get, for some reason I can't get a cursor to show on there. Oh, there it is, sorry. So right here where you see this yellow mark, we were planning on putting a couple segments of post and rail fence and attaching a sign here that just says no dogs beyond this point, just to remind folks that do park in this area, and some of them let their dogs run here, or they walk their dogs this way and up, and then sometimes use this way to access the trail, or they cut through and go over back through Skunk Hollow on the other side behind the dumpsters. So we want to try and head some of that off and continue to turn people, in this direction towards the trails, which I think overall people have been doing a really good job of that. Again, I think the work of this board, the communication, and knowledge of what's going on at the mansion, people have really been doing a great job there of, trying to observe, the park rules. One consideration here is that we may want to ask people to leash before they get out of the parking lot and get dogs out of cars. I know I'm here a lot. It happens at Hartford also, just as a side note, but dogs running through the parking lot, people backing out, pulling in, can be an unsafe situation. So a consideration as part of the policy is just to, require them to be on a leash until they get to the trail. Since again, this is still within the Willows Park proper and where dogs are not permitted. And then access the trail here where they'll have additional signage. So right now, the ordinance has been posted. We have it up at the park. I know we're working on some other signage and communication plans and information that'll be going out. And as part of this, trying to obviously have some encouragement of the groups we want to work together. This is just a short list of things I had put together of how we can continue to get that word out and some of the work that we'll be doing. I know we talked about having some steward groups. I know some of the dog owners themselves actually have concerns about aggressive dogs. And that's something that has been brought forward. And I think there's some concern that dog owners that don't follow the rules or don't want to follow the rules are going to spoil it for everyone else and potentially, enact some type of a tighter leash requirement. So I know that those folks are interested in potentially starting a park monitoring group amongst themselves so that they can sort of team up and, try to communicate with some of the folks that might be breaking the rules. Obviously, if things are significant, I know we've had police reports and things that have been, brought forth with regards to those complaints. We've actually had even a recent situation. It wasn't a police report per se, but we did have an aggressive group of dog owners and dogs, several, where that was a concern. And those do happen. We've looked at those. We've talked about those over the last several years. So promotional campaigns, things like that. We want to make it a positive and get that community engagement going. This is just a draft of what some of the policies could look like on the signage. So part of what I tried to encourage is the board to consider it as we go along to look at what some of those things might be. And a lot of this is stuff we talked about throughout our meetings, in terms of, how we might want to communicate, what kind of information we want to put on signage, things like that. So I want the board to have an opportunity to kind of look at some of this stuff tonight. I'd love to hear from some of the dog owners that are here and get their input, just to kind of jump through some of this. We wanted to look at it as, a way to convey usage of the trail being at your own risk. That's really important to all users. Dogs, notifying people, making sure they know that, dogs are on leash. Here's when they're required to be on leash. They're not permitted, obviously, during the township community events. When we note that it's closed, we try to post that in advance. They're not permitted at the Willows Park, taking an opportunity to reiterate that. We may want to consider adding, some, like a map, perhaps, or something like that to show people so they can understand the boundaries. Again, the signage hopefully will work a long way to that, but not too much signage because we know that gets cluttery as well. Dogs must be leashed in the parking lot on the designated path to the Skunk Hollow Trail entrance. Dog owners are legally responsible for the behavior of their dogs. All park users be cautious of dogs permitted off-leash during the times when they're off-leash, obviously during the weekdays, Saturdays and Sundays until 12 o'clock. Be courteous to all trail users, no aggressive dogs. Please report those behaviors, as people have done a pretty good job of doing. I just highlighted 2 items here with regards to licensing and immunizations in Pennsylvania. We may want to require that. It's a consideration, although it technically is required, I believe, by the county. And then dogs should have some type of identification that's displayed, and then reporting all the emergencies.
Thank you, Tammy. I think we're going to open it up to the board, and then we'll open up to the public for any comments. So does anyone on the board have any comments regarding the draft about the parks, about some of these proposed?
I have a question. This would be one sign, or are these potential topics on a sign?
Well, we'd have to talk about that and how we want to do that.
My initial
what-
reaction was way too much.
It's a lot of information. And we kind of have that at the skate park. So if you look at the skate park's list of rules on the sign there, it's kind of like this. The other part of this, though, is, and it was kind of my next slide, is what does it mean for your dog to be under control? So that's another discussion that we were having, is when the dogs are off leash, we also want to put parameters on that in terms of what it looks like to be under control. And then that's also a list of guidelines that we can take and convey at other parks where dogs are permitted to be off leash as well. So the thought was that would be something that would carry over across our parks. We heard a lot of great feedback. So I don't want to put the cart before the horse too far, but that's another consideration that, we'd be asking folks to kind of give some feedback on as well.
I think that a session, or offer one of our sessions where we actually allow some communication, because this could be a lot, but I think it's all very important. So I agree with you. It's a lot, but I agree. Anybody else on the board have any comments regarding what was proposed?
Tammy, I know we heard that the Board of Health was reviewing just the, I guess, like dogs being allowed off leash within the township, I think, or am I mistaken something? Weren't they looking at the issue in general? I just didn't know if they had finished their review or if that just sort of, wound down.
So the Board of Health was having discussions on making sure that dogs are immunized, get their immunizations, they have their licensing and all of that. I don't think they were working towards an approval of anything. I know that they were updated on our discussions happening at the Parks Board with regards to the leash, and I think they emphasized that the leash could, help to that effect of. But there's nothing that they weighed in on that they passed or working towards at this point.
I just want to clarify that what we're asking is applicable to all that use the park, even if they are not a member of Radnor Township. Is that correct? That anybody that goes to this park is going to have to abide by these things if they bring, because we know people use the park who don't live in the township. So I just want to make that distinction. And then, to my knowledge, if there is an incident and they are not licensed, the dog is not licensed by the county, I think that has its own set of issues. So just going to make that comment. Is there any other comments from anybody on the board? You-
I mean, we may need some guidance as to what under control means. I mean, my idea.
And we've gotten that. So in talking with John Rice, and it's kind of listed up here, he's the township solicitor. Under the Pennsylvania law, which is what his recommendation was rooted in and from, was that under control means that a dog must be in view. It's not defined by a distance or amount of feet or anything like that, but must be within view, and then when called upon by command, comes back.
Also, does it state if it has to be managed by an adult? So was there any distinction made? Just asking, because we do know that we have, if you have a 14-year-old, just a question I'm throwing out. That's something I just thought about. So I don't know if that's also under consideration.
Yeah, sorry, that's me over here.
Hi.
Adding to the PA law that John Rice was looking at. So all dogs must be under control and must not be allowed to run at large. Dogs are personal property, and the owners are responsible for damages caused by their dogs. So in the case you're trying to give, is it the child's? Well, it's really the parents of the child would be the owner of the dog.
Thank you. If it's okay, I'd like to open up to the public. If there's anybody here that we welcome any comments regarding what was being discussed. Please feel free to come up, state your name, your address, and your comments. Thank you, Tammy.
Ian, you can switch back.
Anybody out there that wants to talk about the dogs? No? I was just going to say, I'm moving along and I have a tight ship, I guess, but I hope I'm not moving too fast because I do talk a little fast. So if there's no public comment regarding this, I'm going to move to the next because there could be public comment for something else. So we're going to get to everybody, and I appreciate everybody's patience. Odoricio, Park Improvements Planning, update, discussion. Tammy, it's all you. You're on again.
And just on this, if people have feedback, and I know they do because I've received hundreds of emails in the last couple of years on dogs in parks, feel free to reach out. I just want to reiterate that to some of the dog owners that might be watching or catch up on this later on, because I know this information has really come from our meetings. That's where I've kind of taken a lot of this and put it together. It's from feedback that we have received along the way.
Just a comment, if there are any feedback regarding any of the items we discussed, you're more than welcome to contact or email Tammy if you want to discuss it. We welcome and encourage it as well. So thank you.
Okay. Odoricio. All right. So this has been a discussion, a fun discussion. It's been an on-location discussion. I think we've had probably about 7 meetings at the RTCA, and we even walked the park last year in the summertime on a beautiful night. It's been an exciting project to engage in, and I just want to thank the residents that participated in it. I don't know if any of them are here tonight, but we've had a lot of participation. It's gone in ebbs and flows, but I think we've been making a lot of headway. We've heard a lot of great things. I know this board has been spending a lot of time on this, so I thank you guys for that. So park renovations at Odoricio, just a summary of what these could include. And these are all items that we've talked about along the way. I'm not going to go back into them and reiterate all that, but there's a lot of wonderful opportunity here. We know the park hasn't had a lot of improvements over the years, at least 30 plus years. It's a 60-year-old park. I think it turned 60 last year. We know that there have been items in the capital budget for a really long time. I came into my role in 2010, and the amenities at Odoricio were in the capital plan then. Andy, I know when you were I think you were on the board before I came into my role. I think they were probably there when you came onto the board as well, going back well into the I guess, mid-2000s. So we know there's been a lot of discussion. There's been some great things that have happened, too. The basketball court recently was renovated. We've tried to make some spot repairs to the comfort station here and there. The playground has had repairs over the years where we've had the broken slides. I think we've had some other broken pieces as well when that has occurred. We had installed bleachers, new benches, lots of great things, but still not enough, right? So still just not where I know everybody wants to see this great park go. This is just a little bit of the timeline to date and how this has all gone. We started in February of 2022 having detailed meetings. It was a new business item then. We've had, again, I mentioned about 7 specialty meetings at the RTCA, lots of community engagement. It's been an agenda item on this board's agenda since that time and has had a standing invitation to all of the members of the public. In fact, we have an e-list, an e-notification list that's been set up. I think there's probably 100+ people that are on it so that they can receive notifications to come to the meetings. So there's definitely a lot of folks that are wired into it and a lot of folks that have provided a lot of really helpful feedback. So we had a community input survey. I had 2 residents that actually volunteered. They took Township iPads and they actually went to people's homes and engaged them. So you just heard me say that the comp plan had 500 respondents. We had 200 for Odoriceo. And the vast majority were all residents and live in the region in Wayne, like in the Wayne area. So I know you guys received the copy of that data and feedback in July. So if I need to provide that again, let me know, like the hard data that came from the survey. So it was out there for 8 months, lots of great feedback. Continued with special meetings. Our last meeting, which occurred in November, we actually broke out into working sessions. We had large copies of the park, aerials. I did like a color forms cutout, so everybody had an opportunity. They could write on the plans. They put copies of like the playground or nature-based playground, a commercial playground, inclusive playground, pickleball courts. We had all kinds of things. So we did a charrette of sorts to try and get feedback to really understand what people wanted to see. And a lot of really good information came out at that meeting. And I think folks enjoyed the engagement. So let me back up for a second. So where that has led us is establishing basically goals and objectives. So what I've done in the meantime is I've taken all these big sheets that we had where people put their cutouts on them. We had pictures of them. They drew on them. And I kind of married it all together based on the feedback. I met with a preliminary designer to say, hey, here's what we're looking to achieve, and give us a proposal for what it would be to put a conceptual plan together. So that's where we are right now, is basically saying like, okay, we want to do a conceptual plan, we've got to pay for the plan. And in doing that, we've been really lucky to get a planning grant from the Delco Greenways. We received $100,000 in a grant, which has been fantastic. I don't know that it's going to cover the entire planning process, but it's a nice piece of it. It doesn't require a match, so that's even better. So we didn't have to put money in to make that happen. We know that that is something we at least can get some movement and some headway in putting together a plan. So getting that process started is really important. And authorizing basically where the money is going to come from, Township still has to pay for it and then get reimbursed by the grant. Conducting a land boundary, and a land survey is another piece. It's not cheap to do that. It's another area where I've been working to get a proposal together so that we can understand where our land boundaries are, especially near and around the basketball court. I think there's a lot of questions over there on where the township land stops and where the homeowners' properties start. So that's something we need to make some headway on understanding as part of the process. Next steps, I hope in April and/or May to get to the Board of Commissioners and have them authorize this preliminary design. And then what would happen at that point is the architects would get to work on starting to marry all of these ideas together. We talked about some changes to the layout of the parking lots. We talked about a comfort station that might have a pavilion, things like that. So they'll be able to start breaking that out and putting that together so that we all have something to work from, and we can get the community back out and start to give input and then start to refine it. And then also review, the commissioners would also hopefully review and authorize to be able to conduct the land survey. And then, of course, that would include like existing features and things like that to bring that all together for us. So tonight, what I have on the agenda for the board is I want to have a motion, I'd like to request a motion of support to use the park impact fees, or park impact fund, to get that work done. But before I get into that, let me just finish on the timeline, because I have that slide up. So essentially, just kind of bringing it all together, if we were to, in April and May, receive authorization, move forward, start working on conceptual design, continue with the residents and having engagement, figure out, okay, do we want to change things, move things, do some things differently, get that to where, we believe we have a good, solid plan, then we would try and understand what that's going to cost. So, and that's what we would be asking our architectural design firm to tell us. We want to do this and all these things, what is that going to cost? And ideally, that could run right into when we're planning for the budget for 2025. So the township will start putting the budget together in roughly August. We start working on it, September, and then start engaging the board in September, October. It would really be ideal to know what the order of magnitude is. So getting back to like our discussions earlier, we were talking about Odoriceo, what's it going to cost? What's Beauconner going to cost? And then be able to figure out, is that something that gets approved within a capital plan? Is it something where there's consideration to borrow money to get it done? I certainly would be looking to some of our potential partners to maybe fund some portions of it. I'm referring to Radnor Wayne Little League. I know they have interest in making upgrades to the baseball field in some of the areas. Maybe they have opportunity there where they can put some money into the project as well to help us get it done. And then obviously continue moving forward, in final design, final detail, and then figuring out, going to bid and ultimately getting an idea on construction costs and going to bid to construct, which I think lines up with the way the current capital budget, which is unfunded, has it situated for 2025, in terms of how it's laid out. So if you look at it in the capital budget, that's why it says 2025. We talked about the survey. This was just some of the feedback pieces. I know some of this is cut off, but this is what I extracted from Google. So I know you guys received, again, like some of the harder data on that. The comfort station we know is a key item. Wooded natural spaces, tree replenishment, all of that important stuff. Seating, park benches, furnishings were all things that came out of our discussions, as well as the survey, improvements to the parking lots, navigation throughout the park, connectivity, pathways, connecting the playground, the comfort station, the basketball court, all of those things, making those ADA so you can get around to all of those spaces. I see somebody put the basketball court in there, but I think at the time we were probably just finishing up the project. Some of the other items here, which is interesting, where we received some feedback. We have folks that want to see a covered pavilion and shelter. Again, the playground is definitely one that's been huge for renovation. So even though it's cut off there, they want to see that be inclusive. We've had requests for that to be a nature space, where there could be some sort of nature play that exists within there, some type of natural, spaces. I know the water feature is part of that. I'm not sure how feasible that's going to be, but that's definitely one that had been brought forward. And then you can read through the rest. I know pickleball courts is on there. I can promise you on my first iteration of the concept plan, you won't see pickleball courts unless you direct me to put pickleball courts in there. As much as I know pickleball is thriving, separate conversation, and I'm not sure just interjecting that on the forefront of the plan is something that the residents are going to be happy about. Not to mention, I'm not seeing a demand for additional courts. What's at Philippone, what's at Beauconnor, and what's at Climacrone right now is, at least in my world, hasn't been something where I get contacted looking for more space. We can probably think creatively there in the future if we needed to. So there's the list of things, just ideas there that came forth. And this sort of just regurgitates those. This is what the concept plan expectations, what people might see. Again, I probably wouldn't out of the gates design it with a skateboarding area, but we might put some blank areas in that are sort of like, okay, we could use these spaces for other things if we wanted to. I know we have a heavy skateboarding contingency in the neighborhood. I know they like to use the basketball court for that. But a lot of the things that you see featured here, we would want to probably start out of the gates, and trying to put at least placeholders in. So you're not going to see detail. Like you'll see a playground space and, square footage that, probably roughly, replicates what we have, but we can get into those details later of what folks want to see. So in line with that, the playground is one of those areas, we want to marry together a lot of the input and talk to people a little bit more about it. The wooded area is another area. You're not going to see a plan with that developed with trails and bike paths. It's something that requires more conversation because we know we have a lot of mixed feedback there. We have people who want to see trails. We have people who want to see that just stay open space but maintained as a healthy forest. So those are all conversations we still have to have, but I don't want to submerge the process. Because we can design out the spaces without really getting into the details of those right this moment. So what I'm referring to is basically the shaded area. Like we're going to want to look at that area and start putting that together. But when we get to, especially this side of the park, I know we have neighbors along this area that would prefer to see some buffer. May have stormwater concerns. We have some that live along Atlee there. Those are the Atlee residents. I know I've met with a couple of them. I've talked about some of their stormwater concerns, designing walking paths and things like that right into those areas out of the gates. Again, probably not the best approach. I think those require more conversation. And as I mentioned, the wooded area, I think is something that is going to have to garner a lot of more, discussion before we say we want to definitively leave it alone or do something to it. So that brings me just to sort of like the budget, right? The budget's under development. We don't know what it's going to cost. We have a good idea of what people want to see. And a lot of, I think, what folks want to see is in-kind replacement of what's there and some enhancement. It does seem like people want to see at least a small pavilion with the comfort station. We talked about relocation of it, sliding it further down into the open space where there's parking up above the staircase there along the third base line. I think those are all things we're still sort of vetting through and, conceptually meeting with a designer and just sort of to start putting that together and then, again, putting something out there where we can sit down with the residents again and have them react to it, I think is probably a good approach. So right now, just the state of the budget at this point, we know we have $100,000 that we can use towards planning. So that's dedicated specific to conceptual planning and design. Right now in the Park Impact Fund, which is the only place we have dollars right now for parks. I just got this update from Bob Tate, the finance director today. There's $400,000 in that account. So not surprising given the amount of development that's been going on in the last few years. So as of right now, and that is less what was spent at Enki, because if we go a step further here, there's a motion that this board passed on April 7th, 2022. This is when we were having a discussion on Enki Playground. We had failing poured-in-place surfacing at that playground that was a safety hazard. And then we also had a strong demand for sunshades. We had lots of great discussions on sunshades, and I know we'll still continue doing that too in the future. Covered the canopies that are over the playground. The project's done, looks great. So that was utilized, you guys authorized to utilize, or you guys recommended, and we took it to the commissioners, and they supported it. The Board of Commissioners authorized the support of that. We funded that project. It left a balance. I think at the time, the balance was, we knew it was like $275,000. It's $400 today. But the motion that you guys recommended to the board was to earmark that for Odorrissio. Now, that's not in stone, because again, the commissioners haven't authorized that. But what I'm asking for today is, if we want to keep moving forward with Odorrissio, and we want to start the concept planning process, which is the next stage, we could fund it out of the $400,000 that we have in the Park Impact Fund, like, you know, we kind of said we were going to do, and then take that to the commissioners, and then get the process going to authorize those proposals to start the conceptual planning, as well as doing the land boundary surveys.
Thank you, Tammy.
And then I had
Okay.
a slide. I know I covered this before. I don't want to like dig deep into this, but I just want to make sure the new members know that there are a lot of things that came out of the discussions that were sort of in tandem with the project. I have those listed here, and they have to do with the neighborhood connectivity, safety, sidewalks. I don't want to dismiss those items, because they're all important as well. And where they're really important is during the comp plan process. So I just want to make sure that I have those outlined so you guys can see that information as well. They would not be funded as part of this project because they're outside of the boundaries of the park. I know we had a concern for a resident that had attended a couple of our meetings. I think I had referenced earlier, the Atlee residents have concerns about the stormwater coming out of the woods area down onto the properties there. And, you know, I know that's something that our township engineer, Steve Norsini, is looking at from a stormwater standpoint to see if that's a project that comes within that. And then obviously any stormwater management as a result of the park project would be done. So if we increase the footprint of the, you know, the comfort station, you know, obviously we're going to have to follow our ordinance in terms of stormwater management and how we allocate that within the park, as we would also follow the tree requirements. And I know you guys know that that's all. The trees are important. You know, we don't want to take down trees if we don't need to. And any of that discussion ultimately would be vetted out through the Shade Tree Commission.
So I'd like to open it up before we open for public comment, to just open it up to the board here, and just thank you, Tammy, for a very comprehensive discussion, opening it back up again. Is anyone on the board have any comments or questions regarding what was presented?
I have a question. Looking at the map and how it was designed, are we talking about the areas that are like visible? Because Odorrissio tends to have very hidden, like the deeper you go into the woods down the bottom, the less there is surveillance or like the ability to see. And that for me is a safety issue, not just for the people who participate, but for the residents that live there. I know that park very well because it's my park, and I know how to get around it through the park and never be seen. And so that's always a safety issue for me. So I'm not sure if all of the improvements are those that are visible, or are we talking about going deeper into the park?
The project entails the entire park.
So where does it end?
Are you able to put the diagram up? Tammy, thank you. I think you're talking about the wooded area too, is like another
So,
area.
this is probably the one you wanted to look at. So, I didn't want to mislead with this slide. We're not talking about just developing this part of the park. What I'm saying is out of the gates, to get started on conceptual design, a lot of the improvements are going to fall within this area. We know that this needs more discussion because we've got conflicting interests. We know that the woods has a lot of conflicting interest. So, but I don't want to stop the design from moving to get something on paper that shows what the comfort station could look like, the playground, the parking lots. We know ingress, egress coming out on West Wayne Avenue is very difficult. So everything's still on, like the canvas is still open, I guess to say, from the park boundary end to end. So if I show you, this basically shows the park boundary. And why this is divided into two segments is because the upper portion is, I don't know why
Is that
this,
Maplewood?
pardon me?
Was
This
it go
por-
up as far up as Maplewood?
Right, so this portion here, which is, this is Maplewood down here, this portion of the park, plus this strip that goes up here, that includes. I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know why.
You want me to go up and point?
Yeah, I can do that. I just don't know why it was working before and now it's not.
I can go. I can point. All right. Why don't you talk and I'll point? Yeah, I'll point. All right. you point.
Okay, okay. So that's Maplewood. That section is the township. That's owned by the township. The upper block where you see the ball field, that portion and that parcel is owned by the school district. So according to the county records, which we had John Rice take a look at, it is still owned by the school district. I don't know that the school district necessarily agrees with that, but, because we've had that conversation, but based on what our solicitor researched, it is dual ownership. So where you see the strip that goes up in the top part of the park, right there, which is the comfort station, the playground, and then that parking lot area along the third base line, that would still be township property there. That's why the land boundary survey in detail is going to be really important to sort through that so that we do understand that. So just for clarification, there are two other parks, North Wayne Park and Emlyn-Tennell, that are also owned by the school district. We have a lease agreement with them on those locations that's very detailed to what our responsibilities are. We do not have any agreement that I'm aware of relative to Odorisio Park. So I don't know if at some point there was a swap of some sort that happened. I know we did a lot of that back in the day. Sadly, I was here long enough to remember some of it, but not with regards to Odorisio. But there were a lot of land swaps that happened, and the county records weren't always always on par with it. But I'm just speaking from what our solicitor sorted out, and I think I even have a slide somewhere that shows the parcels. We did a report years ago with a real estate firm, and they found the same information, that they were two separate parcels.
Just for kicks, what is the cost, estimated cost, for the land survey? Estimated, I know.
I have a proposal, but it needs tweaked, as they all do. It's going to probably be, don't quote me on this, but it's going to be around $25,000.
Okay, that.
So if we were using the funds from the Park Impact Fund, good question, because that one's not reimbursed. That wouldn't be reimbursed per the grant.
Gotcha.
Just the planning costs.
Gotcha.
But I'll look into it. To see if it
I
can
don't know
be
whether this is
reimbursed on
the
grant
time to
also.
bring this up, but I have one comment. Well, I have two comments. Number one, I am blown away by the comprehension of what you've presented. This is way above my pay grade, but it's really good and wonderful. I know you want to have a motion to move forward. I know that, and that we can do that. But, and I don't know whether it's time to bring this up, but has any thought been done, and I don't know whether this is the board to do it, but public and private funding? I mean, everything you say, I say go ahead and do it, but obviously money's the problem. And I know, I don't know the status of the baseball field down here. You have a lot of signs. Were they sold, and is that where was the funding for that, I guess? On the baseball field right here.
Right, so Radnor Wayne Little League sells those to sponsors,
Oh, okay,
and then they take in the money.
okay.
They do have an agreement with the township on that, where they pay a licensing fee to us.
Sure.
Per the sign ordinance that we have here in the township, but they use that to help fund their projects,
Yeah.
which, one of the things I will say, though, as part of that, to dovetail, they've been an awesome partner. The scoreboards, they paid for with private funding.
Right.
The lights, the Musco lighting system out
Musco,
here,
okay, yeah.
probably not on tonight, because I know they're just getting started, and they shouldn't be on the infields anyways, but the lighting project, they had paid for by their funding.
Right.
So even though it's not coming directly to the township, but it is an overall enhancement to the township's facility that turns this great, opportunity for the community.
Exactly. Well, again, to my point, has anyone explored this thing as a viable way of raising money?
We can, when we know what it's going to cost,
Yeah.
absolutely. And if we have partners to the project that are interested, it would be great to have that happen. I would be asking Little League to fund some of the ball field upgrades. I know they're interested in having dugouts, and dugouts could naturally help with the stormwater coming down there by becoming retaining walls. So we're trying to look creatively at that. Plus, the kids bake in the summer when they're sitting on their dugouts now that don't have any type of shade. So I know they have interest in doing that and making some improvements, and that's something we'll be trying to work with them on. If there are other opportunities, I would say, like, in the category of other funding options, yep, everything's fair game.
Everything you presented to me is yes, let's go ahead and do it. And everything you presented presents financial obstacles. And it just seems to me that if we find other sources of funding, that would be helpful.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you for the comment. Anybody else on the board that would like to make a comment before we consider a motion to move this thing along? And I'll open it to the public as well.
I'm seeing baseball fields, so if the baseball field belongs to the school district, is that a part of this plan?
Well, we know there's some improvements that are needed, but most of the improvements that are needed are up above the baseball field with regards to the grading and the stormwater runoff. So, you can see the tree root erosion all along the hillsides. It just permeates down, and it's washing out the backstop, the whole. If you go into the batter's box, most days it's just puddles. I know they try to cover it, obviously to mitigate some of that. So it would include that, but I think comprehensively as part of the project, we would want it to. But have them, contribute towards that as well. Okay. Obviously, stormwater management and runoff are issues, and we're going to try and manage those because we want to make sure that the hillside doesn't roll away at some point. Because if you look at the stairs, they're undercut very bad. They're going to need to be replaced, or there's some other reconfiguration solution is going to have to take place. So I hope that answers your question. Yes, baseball, the portions, but again, we'd be looking to Radnor Wayne Little League. If they want dugouts, we want them to kind of step up and hopefully put some funding towards that.
If there's anybody else that has any comment, we'll open up to the public. If there's anyone here, a representative, that would like to come up to the podium to speak about Odorisio Park improvements. Do you have a comment, Bill?
Just a couple quick things. Number one, I think we should consider a motion, some type of the form that Tammy has suggested, number one. Number two, very small minutia, maybe premature. I recall when we visited Macron, that there was concern about the location, the existing location of the bathroom at that park as being too distant from Conestoga Road, and there was input from our police department, which at least in part led to its movement. I know you mentioned something about location. That probably should be something that should be considered, or at least preliminary consultation as to whether or not our police department thinks that moving it to that parking area might be best from a security, policing, surveillance perspective.
Yeah, we definitely can give that some consideration and engage them as part of that, as well as, just take into consideration if we do add a pavilion onto it, no matter how small or big, it would now be probably a more social space, if you will, that's going to back up to the residences. So, and when we met with regards to Clemacrone. I know we had several meetings on that. I think we even moved the comfort station a couple times. So that's going to be very important. Thank you for that reminder.
Okay, so is there anyone in the public would like to come up? Yes, sir. Please feel free to state your name and your address.
Hi, good evening. Dave Herman. I live at 227 Atlee Road. My property backs up to the park, probably the closest property to the park, or one of them. I'd like to thank the township for being receptive to all our comments and responsive. Tammy's done a wonderful job, so we appreciate that. Consistent with the 2035 plan and what you've seen from the residents, I like open spaces, I like the woods, I like the trees, and I'm against further development of the park. I don't know that we need further development in the township. We have a lot of ball fields. We're still playing baseball there. We've been playing baseball there a lot of years. I don't know why it needs dugouts. I don't think it needs signs in the outfield. We're not looking to turn it into Citizens Bank Park or something else. It's a nice fielded area where people do a lot other than play baseball. They run, they walk their dogs, they play soccer there. The storage of the soccer goals are a problem we've talked about. But overdevelopment, I don't think, is good for the community, regardless of who pays for it. Just because somebody else is paying for it, I don't think it makes it a good idea. Stormwater continues to be a problem. We think that there's water that comes off of Maplewood that's changed its path in recent years due to curbing that's been put on Maplewood, and it funnels into the park. It causes a lot of runoff. It's added a lot of silt and mud to my neighbor's pond, my stream, my pond, and it's flowing down into Mill Dam. And it's eroding or creating structural problems with a bridge on my property that is my driveway. It's creating problems with dams at my house and also at Mill Dam. So we think that should be addressed. And hopefully sooner rather than later, because it will affect my drive that might get washed out someday by the stormwater. So we have all those concerns and encourage you and would like you to proceed cautiously with any development, which we are against. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment.
You're welcome.
Can I just make 2 responses to Mr. Herman?
Sure.
First of all, I owe you a meeting on the goals, so I thank you for reminding me of that. The other one is I will definitely bring that forward with Steve Orsini so he could take a look at the curbing that you're referencing to see if that's an issue.
And I'm happy to walk the park with him too.
Okay,
He's been great too.
I will let him know. Thank you.
I called him, thanked him the other week. He's been great.
Just a small addition
Sure, Commissioner.
to the table that was included with some of the money that we already have. So in addition to the 100,000, we also have 80,000 set aside from the townhomes that were built off of Maplewood. The builder, part of the agreement was he was to donate $80,000 that was dedicated to Odoricio Park. We'd always talk.
That's included in that amount, Commissioner, just so you know.
That's included in the 400,000.
You're talking about Submergent?
Yeah.
Yeah, Submergent actually gave us, so 24,000 was part of the formula that naturally that they would pay. They actually gave an additional 125.
Okay.
So those 2 amounts are part of the 400. And I confirmed that today with Bob Tate.
Okay.
Just so you guys know, that's where that account is. It's actually 403 something, but it's 400,000.
All right. It should be. Can we split that out though, so we know that that 125 is dedicated to Odoricio? That's not to be used for any other park.
We can definitely do that. That's a good call.
Okay. I don't want other projects to think there's 400,000 that they can pull from. They really only have 275. And one of the things that I didn't hear discussed, but I think needs to be done, and I'm sure it would be included in a project, are the parking lots.
That's part of it.
Okay, that bottom parking lot, if this project is going to be 18 months, 2 years off, I don't know that parking lot is going to last 2 more years with the amount of rain. And when it rains and heavy rains, the water just sits in the middle. So if there's a way that we could look at doing the parking lots before, I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, again, if we're 2 years off, I'd rather see, I think it'd be a good idea to consider doing that bottom parking lot now and before it deteriorates even further.
Well, I think one of the things that came out of our discussions was whether or not that, you mean along the third base line, parking lot is even needed. And so members of Radnor Wayne Little League and Radnor Soccer Club they've been wired in. In fact, 2 representatives attended our summer meeting when we met at the park. And I think we heard from one of them that there wasn't even a need for that parking. So I think we have to look into that a little bit more, because what could happen is that space can then become usable, even if it's just green space and it's, you know, some sort of like natural space. Obviously, grading in that area is a really big issue, because that's why we're seeing a lot of the water, you know, running off and deteriorating the hillside. So there is some stabilization that's going to be needed there. But I know there's been some discussion as to whether or not that's needed to be a parking space moving forward.
So when I go to, so the middle school holds soccer games at Odoricio, and the games I've attended, the upper parking lot is packed to the point where you have vehicles parking on the grass, and that lower parking lot is packed, and they're parked in all different directions. So I don't know if you take away that parking lot where we're expecting parents to park. They're not going to park on West Wayne, and I don't think the neighbors on Highland want them parking on Highland.
No, so I think a couple of things. First of all, you know, I think we definitely want to dig into that a little bit more and verify that. But it is possible that there might be a little bit of an expansion possibility to make up some of the space that would be lost there in the lot along West Wayne. Perhaps a reconfiguration, perhaps like maybe turning it into something a little bit more like Phillip Home, where it's a one-way in, one-way out. We might be able to do the slanted parking that might capture what we might lose. I think another part that we need to understand too is, again, where those park boundaries are on the other side over at Fairview, to see like what do we really even own there. But the thought is that maybe to the design process, we're not going to lose parking, but we might be able to consolidate it and capture it to where some of that becomes usable space. Just a consideration. We definitely don't want to lose parking for our sports organizations. We know that they are vital, and we don't want to see cars parked on the grass and things like that, for sure, or Highland Avenue for that matter.
Thank you, Commissioner. If there's no other comment, I'm going to move ahead, as we've been asked to talk about consideration of a motion.
I've been scribbling here. So let me try this, just to at least start the discussion. The Park Board recommends that the Board of Commissioners authorize moving forward with the project conceptual and comprehensive plan for Odoricio Park. To the extent the funds from the Delco Greenways grant are not eligible for use or are exhausted, the Parks Board recommends that the Board of Commissioners authorize the use of funds from the Park Impact Fund to fund the project conceptual and comprehensive plan, period.
Any comments from anybody on the board regarding that draft? Good, Andy? Anybody else? So,
All right, then I'll make a motion that we adopt that particular motion.
okay. All in favor? Aye. And I believe that motion is passed.
Yes.
So we'll put that one away. Thank
right.
you,
No problem.
Counselor. Okay. So, let's see. We're done that part, so now we move to the Radnor Township capital budget, Park Impact Fund allocation. Is there any update there? We may not have much of an update, but I know that they're definitely working on it, so thank you. Thank you. Tammy, do we have any update regarding the Radnor Township capital budget? That's it. Thank you.
So just dovetailing on some of the earlier conversations, there's a lot of projects that are out there. One of the things I'm actually doing right now is I provided you the link to the capital budget, page 146. It was in one of the emails I had sent to you, just so you could see what, it is in concept, unfunded. I'm currently working with the finance department now to update that, re-strategize some of those projects, put some new costs on things where we know there's been some elevations. And my plan would be is to come back to this board, hopefully in the coming months with an update, take a look at it, start to think about projects. I know we're going to have a conversation a little bit later about park stewards. I know you guys spoke a little bit earlier about when you get into your parks, looking at them, what do you see, what, relative then to the plan, might have some ideas and thoughts about certain playgrounds, certain areas, fencing, parking lots, all of that. So I would just encourage the board to keep looking at those things and thinking about those things, and then we'll start to talk about them a little bit later. I do think it's important we understand funding before we get too deep into it, unless we have something that comes before us where it's an eminent issue. We know we have a safety issue in front of us. And really, Radnor Activity Center is going to be that one right now, where it's going to be at the forefront. And we're going to talk about Fenimore in a little bit, but I would say that's really the only update that I have. I think we covered some of it earlier. We just talked about the Park Impact Fund. You guys are aware of what the balance is right now and what's in the account. It's really a great opportunity for us to be able to get some projects done in lieu of not having not having a capital fund.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board regarding that update? Anybody? Any comment? Okay. Fenimore Woods Park renovation project update and review of next steps. This one's been on the docket as well. So, Tammy,
Okay.
we've talked about this one quite a bit.
Okay, so really quickly, again, more for our two new board members tonight. I know we've had a lot of discussions. Again, another topic that has been in discussion for many years. Fenimore Woods Park Improvement Plan is a project that was funded out of the 2016 bond. It was a comprehensive bond. We talked earlier about Clemacrone. We talked about Beauconnor Park, Philippone Park, some parks that received improvements as a result of that bond. Fenimore is the last project on the list within that bond to spend those funds. Many issues over there. Let me jump this up to a presentation mode. This is probably a really great picture of the stable because it might be old, might be a few years old, but we know there's a lot of aging infrastructure. Those are a little bit more real. If you drive over there today, like I said, I believe the shape is a little bit worse. Some of these pictures are from presentations from a while ago. The picture to the right is the column as part of the pavilion. And then the pad there, the concrete area as part of the pavilion. As you can see, not in great shape. And this, just in disclosure, this is a project that's been funded. So I want to go to, this shows sort of all the issues of the park. Stormwater issues, aging infrastructure, no connectivity. We have tree issues. So here's a comprehensive overview of the park. I want to try to put all these pieces together really quickly. I think this is just a great update for everybody. So first of all, when we talk about this portion of the park, this is the area where we're really targeting the improvements right now. We determined a long time ago that this project didn't have funding to entail the pond. We know the pond might need some dredging or some work in the future, but very costly and definitely not able to get the rest of the work done that's desired as far as the rehabilitation to the usable spaces. So that'll be a project for the future. Gilmore & Associates is the design firm that has been engaged on this. At the Parks and Recreation Board, you guys have had several meetings with them. We had roundtable meetings. We had lots of discussions about goals and objectives, given the amount of money that's left for the park to be able to make the improvements. So upper portions of the park, comprehensive park improvements. Then we made a determination last September that the stable was really important. We wanted to preserve it. We heard from the community, we engaged, we heard that that was like in addition to not taking down any trees as part of the project, that was the number 2 thing that we wanted to do. We wanted to preserve the stable, make it usable for bathroom space and storage. So we actually had a firm engaged to look at it in terms of its rehab. That was Gannett Fleming. The board heard a presentation from Gannett Fleming on rehabbing it. It was a very expensive price tag. Ultimately, it went to the commissioners for their review, and they did not like the price tag either. So we came back to the drawing board, looked at a couple of different options for how we could do the project differently, ultimately engaged a new firm for a second opinion by the name of Seiler Drury. So they replaced basically Gannett Fleming, and they're taking a relook to see how can we rehab the stable at a much cheaper cost. And so their contract was authorized in November, which I've been keeping you guys updated along the way, and they've been doing a lot of work in the meantime. And the plan is, hopefully, we'll have them attend our meeting in April so that they can give you an update on the scope of work that they've been working on. I will say that I think it's hopeful to save money. So, we're talking about a almost $1 million price tag to what might be a little less, hopefully a lot less. I don't have the estimation of probable costs just yet, but I know they're trying to be very creative and very thrifty in their approach, but not to compromise safety or our responsibility, just to make sure that that's disclosed. The building will be fit for commercial or for public use, commercial use, what have you, for the public. So this line up here that I just interjected is it's a stormwater pipe. It's a sanitary sewer line. I apologize. We're redesigning that in-house, so it will not be funded as part of the project. So we've been trying to get a little creative to see what can we pull out, what can we do to be as economical as possible with this project. So we're actually redesigning that in-house right now, and that would possibly end up falling under stormwater. We're still working on those pieces in terms of how that would be funded. On the other side of the park, I just bring this up because it's sidewalks. They're outside of the park boundary. I know that we want to have sidewalks get people to the park. It's still a priority, running theme on all of our projects. So I don't want to discount it because, again, comprehensive plan and a lot of construction going on in that area, hopefully in the future. I mean, neighbors have to give the authorization to let us do that. They have to be on board with sidewalks. It's not something we can just jump onto their properties and do. So I know we're trying to work through that simultaneously. The next area is the weir. So there's a spillway that comes into the park, has an outfall of water that comes into the stream. There's a culvert right along Shimoni Road. All of that has been under construction in the last about 9 months. That construction is finishing up. The weir's been replaced, so there have been some improvements that have been done down in that area. Again, not something part of our project, but part of the park I want to call out because there's a lot of moving pieces with this one. So we're seeing that coming to a close. And then, of course, the pond, which is not one of the locations that we're going to be doing direct work as part of this project. And lastly, there's some areas within the project we may be able to get Public Works to do, like accessible pathways. They may be able to do demo on the pavilion, things like that we wouldn't have to pay a contractor to have as part of their bid. So trying to sort of, save some money and value engineer it back as best as we can. Funding. So this project has money in the bank, approximately $1.6 million. We know we received a Keystone Communities project grant, so we have $50,000 that we received from that. So you can see we have finite amount of funds for Fenimore, and that's a mouthful. And obviously a lot of other grant hopefuls. This is a project that has historic rehabilitation. It's a heavily used park for a variety of different, functions and nature-based activities, things like that. So we do think that it would be ripe for many, many grants. So where we are right now is, we're trying to sort out and identify, okay, the stable, because it's basically the cornerstone of the project. What is that going to cost? What is that going to look like? And trying to get that cost down as much as possible to where we think we're going to, it's going to be palatable. And then we're going to go back and we're going to design the rest of the project in that upper portion of the park. That'll include the parking area, making that accessible to the stable, accessible to the pavilion, accessible to the playground. We may not get the playground replaced as part of this. That's an expensive item. That one was built in 2002. So I think with the money we have there, that's not going to happen. We may have been hopeful out of the gates back in 2016, but that's a long time. That was a long time ago. And costs have changed dramatically since then as well. But providing accessibility to the playground is something we're going to have to do. So we are going to have to run pathways to make that work and take a look at how that's going to work. And then possible, walkway through the park as well to kind of connect all of the spaces. So lower lot, upper lot, and everything in between, essentially. This is the list of all the meetings that have taken place. Been a lot of meetings about Fenimore. We had a design back in 2016. We were just getting ready to get authorization to go to bid on that design. That design did entail removing a lot of trees, and then we had a large contingency of residents that came out and said, we don't want those trees to come down. So we basically took that plan, and we put a big X over it, and we pretended it never happened. Did happen, unfortunately. And we did have a public process as part of it, not as detailed as what this one evolved into later. And this has just really been a lesson learned that now we've carried over to Odorriceo and some of our other projects to make sure that we take very incremental steps. I know there's been some frustrations about Odorriceo not moving along faster, but I think we learned a valuable lesson through Fenimore that we really want to take our time and kind of go low and slow. So this just summarizes a lot of those meetings. There's a lot more here. So where we're at right now is basically going to have a very specific meeting next month to take a look at the rehabilitation of the stable and look at the work that Seiler Jury came up with, the scope of work. I know they've put some plans together. I will say, I'm excited about it. I think the work they've done has been really exciting, as long as the costs, are not as high as what they were. But I'm hopeful that is going to be the case. In the last several months, I know you guys talked about it a little bit at the last meeting. I wasn't here. There's been a lot going on, a lot of meetings with them, a lot of back and forth. Sometimes the proposal's submitted and we don't like it, so we want to, kind of, redo it, kind of a thing. We also had Delaware Valley Septics come out and scope the cesspool system that's underground adjacent to the current stable to see, what is it? What does it look like? Is it any salvageable type of shape? We did learn it's not in the greatest shape. Some of it might be able to be salvaged. So we had them give us a proposal to see what it might cost to install a septic system. So one of the costly parts of rehabbing the stable is running to the public sewer, which is all the way down to Paul Road from where the stable is. It's not an Eagle, so you got to go all the way to Paul Road, which is very, very expensive. There's also gravity issues and things like that cause that to be sort of a certain customized type system. It has to be engineered a certain way to be able to make that work. So, one of the ideas Seiler Jury had was, okay, maybe we can do it with a septic system and just rehab the septic system. It can be done within code. It's something that could receive permitting from Delaware County. So we had been working with Delaware Valley Septic to get a proposal of what that would look like. They would install these tanks underground, essentially. There'd be potential for 4,000 or 2,000 gallon tanks that basically would funnel all of the stuff to, and then we would have to, on a maintenance plan, we would have to have it extracted. So we're looking at that. Would that be cheaper than the construction of the sewer and the ongoing of the sewer, to maybe make that a little bit more palatable? So that's just one of the things that they've, I believe, creatively have taken a good look at. These were our project goals: preservation of the trees, stable, rehab pavilion, renovate playground. We know that might not be possible just due to limited funding. And then the accessibility of the park for those who need it is very important, and in engaging that in construction is definitely the law. So that's basically a summary. I don't know if you have any questions. I can certainly provide all of this detail to the board. I know it's unraveling. It's in process. I have a list here of just the things that we've been working on, since since basically March, when it was presented to the Board of Commissioners, and basically returned for that second opinion look of the stable.
Thank you, Tammy. Meticulous. Awesome job. Does anyone on the board have any questions for Tammy regarding her recent update or suggestions? Bill?
I have a question. It seems that that park has opportunities for a lot of STEM learning because of the pond, the fish, there's just like a lot of, I know we're talking a lot about structure and a lot about, repairing walkways and things like that, but is there any talk about any of the monies being directed towards learning opportunities to put in that as a place where kids can go and just kind of or anybody, just to explore kind of nature a little bit more, because it has so much innate nature in it?
Absolutely. So years ago, going back early in my career, we actually used to run a summer camp at Fenimore Woods. Back when we used to use the stable for a bathroom before we had to shut it down because it just became unsafe. We ran 8 weeks over the summer. It was an awesome program. It was called Roving Nature Center, and it was great. I mean, we want to get that kind of stuff back. Unfortunately, rehabbing the pond just isn't feasible right now, because we have all these pieces of infrastructure that aren't safe. So those are definitely going to be the priority, but the pond's still going to be usable once all of those spaces have been rehabbed and we have a safe pavilion and we have a safe place to go to the bathroom. Right now, we're relying on portable toilets. So, we've seen our rentals go down over the years. We used to host a lot of really great organizations there and programs, and no one wants to have a porta potty, be their bathroom access. So I think once we get this park, give it a little TLC, get it back, get the accessibility that we need to make so that everybody could use it. Yes, absolutely. I think we want to, as part of it also, and we've talked about this in our kind of preliminary design, creating more nature spaces in the upper portion of the park, because we know as a result of improving this infrastructure, we're going to have to make stormwater adjustments to the park. So that happens with rain gardens and bioswales and features and things like that, where we can have plantings, we can have gardens and stuff like that, where kids can take part in those kinds of things and learn more, and then venture down to the pond, of course, and get to walk the pond and explore that by fishing and all of that. So it's definitely a priority, as much as we can get done as part of the project and the remaining funding. And grants are great with that stuff too. So I think once we can get a really good plan and we can get some grants together, I think it helps us embellish those. And we're always open to Eastern University. I think they have an ecology department. If they want to, jump in at some point and help us out, that would be great too. I know we have a new owner, a new neighbor right across the street. To your point, Bill, about the funding, I think once we have a plan, we can go sit down and maybe have a conversation with them too. That would be Villanova.
So at this point, this board doesn't need to do anything on Fenimore Woods.
Just giving you an update,
And
that's all.
I'm not
Yep.
suggesting that we shouldn't get the updates, and it's
Yep.
appreciated. So I guess the next piece of information will be a potential price tag on some of these items.
So my hope is that next meeting, April 11th, I think it is, having Seiler Drury come and present what they've put together to you, and then show what the cost estimates are of the stable, so not the rest of the park yet. Because the next step, once we're happy with the stable, and the Board of Commissioners is happy with the stable, we're gonna go back and design the rest of the park. So we'll re-engage Gilmore, get them back, and then have our group come back in and start those discussions again. And hopefully, by the end of the year, or by September, we can have a nice plan together and be ready to go to bid by the end of the year, so that we can get the project constructed in 2025. Like, I hope to be having the conversation that in 2025, we're shutting the park down, like for the summer, for rentals. That would be awesome, just because we know that this has been a long time coming.
Anybody else have any comments or questions? Is there anybody also from the public that has any comments or questions regarding Fenimore Woods and the update that was provided? Nobody else? Going once, going twice? Okay. I'm going to move on to our last item, West Wayne Preserve and Friends of Radnor Trails Park Flood Reduction Project, South Devon Area Flood Reduction. That is a long sentence.
So the project is moving on schedule. We anticipate it finishing up around June, July, which is, again, on schedule. I continue to have conversations with the dog users of the park. I know we were talking about configuration of fencing and potentially changing it, so that's been part of an ongoing discussion. I think what we've arrived at this point, the fencing that had been allocated in the park prior will be reallocated in the same fashion, where I have a slide, but basically the same fencing that's there, that runs along the park where the comfort station is, and then down along the woods line for 30 feet or so, or whatever it was. So the goal is to, I guess, put the fencing back at this point, and then if we have a large outcry for an enclosure, we can always come back and install more fencing later. But there are going to be some disruptions along the Radnor Trail. So just look for notices and posts, not only on the township website and the e-communications that go out on behalf of the township, but also signage that is actually out there. The contractors are doing some work along the abutments to the trail within West Wayne Preserve and part of Friends of Radnor Trails Park. So there's going to be some closures of the trail, unfortunately, on and off. I don't have those dates yet. I know our township engineer, who's on point with that project, because it is a stormwater project, will give me updates on those, and we'll share them with the public.
Thank you. Any questions or comments regarding this topic? Or any comments from the park, public? Actually, sorry, we do have one more item after this. We have your report too. If we don't, the next item is the Park and Recreation Stored Program, which now that we have a board, we can, does anybody want to start on that? You have the list? We all do. We all should have the list. Is there anybody that wants anything revised in terms of the responsibilities for their parks? I don't have it. I don't know where I put it. Maybe I have it. We did? Maybe we should email, yes, that might be a good idea. I mean, and we can also help for the new members if they want to sign up. We also don't have Clark here, so we may want to reserve that for when he's able to just confirm what he wants to be responsible. Otherwise, we'll sign him up for everything. No, I'm just joking. So yes. I think we're good on this one, so then we'll, thank you for coming. Appreciate it. We're good for this one then. And then, is there anything else that we need to cover tonight? You want to?
I can leave my report as submitted. I did have a presentation of some of the activities going on, but I can save those if you want me to scan through them quickly. It's up to you. I'll let the board decide if you want to proceed.
It's up to you guys. I mean, I don't know.
You took the time to prepare the thing, so let's look at it.
Let's look at it. This is probably her most exciting moments, is most proud moments, this part of it, so.
You know what? I feel like I have been. I do. I feel like my
Yeah,
eyes
your
are so
eyes do get a little
dry.
funny sometimes.
They're actually regurgitations of prior ones. But they're mine. I did do them at one point in time. Well, yeah, this is just, so this is just, I wanted to kind of like highlight, our online registration process is actually through an online system. It's called MyRec. I can show you a little bit later how to get to it on the website. Our website pages, if you haven't been to them, it's a web of a lot of information. Not only is there all the information that we have on the parks and the facilities, but the team that I have, the amount of work that they do on the programming and the community events is really amazing. There's just a lot of time and effort that goes into a lot of that by Heather DeCanzio, Tracy Kroom, and Natalie Masosha. So she's formerly Natalie Chaiko. She just got married, so I'm now learning how to spell Masosha, like Mike Sosha from Delaware County. So I wanted to highlight that. When people register for a program, or they register for Wheels of Wayne, or they register for the Sweetheart Dance, everything's done through our online registration portal. We have heavy presence on social media. We have an Instagram, Facebook, and that's an area where the team does an amazing job. Specifically, Natalie does a really good job. If you're not signed up, to receive our posts, I encourage you to do so. There's lots of great information that we funnel through there, usually daily. We manage all of our own marketing and promotions, all of our website updates. Again, if there's target marketing for certain programs and activities, we're going out and trying to get those folks. Just a little bit of a recap recently. The Sweetheart Dance was in its 13th year. Hard to believe this year. It was amazingly attended. It's always a sellout. It's been a sellout since its first year. There's always a wait list that's heavy. It takes place at the Inn at Villanova University. They've actually been a great sponsor of this space. And as you can see, 13 years and everyone having a great time. We have dance activities. There's caricaturist drawings done by an artist of, the parent and the child. We have father-daughters, mother-daughters. It's open to everybody. Used to be the daddy-daughter dance. It's now the Radnor Sweetheart Dance. Everyone is welcome, and we do get a variety of folks that attend, and it's great. It sells out in like an hour. The staff actually might be mad at me because it's probably like 15 minutes. We had a celebration at Bishop Richard Allen Park. We do this every year on February 14th. It's to celebrate the birthday of Bishop Richard Allen, who's the founder of the African Methodist Episcopal Church. It's a partnership we do with the AME Church of Ardmore. We get a great gathering of folks that come out. Reverend Cavanis, who is down with the AME Church of Ardmore, comes out and helps us with the celebration, and everybody coming together, community, and celebrating this great man who did so much and, founded the Mother Church in Philadelphia, but also made his way all the way to Radnor. And this parcel and this park is just so special. If you get a chance, go out to the park and take a look at the panel. We did a historic panel dedication last June, and it tells the history of Bishop Richard Allen, which is really amazing. We were involved in the planning and helping for the planning of this one. We had a citation that was given on behalf of Speaker of the House Joanna Clinton and Representative Lisa Borowski to honor George Sidnor, who was our first African-American police officer here in Radnor Township, served on the force for 15 years. He was a detective. And he was just loved by everybody in the community. I had the opportunity to attend his funeral, regretfully, last year, and I was blown away by the regard that everyone had for him. Really just an amazing man. Track star at Villanova University. held world records, just really just all around amazing family too here in Radnor Township. So it was a great day. We had a luncheon. We helped them plan the event and worked with the AME Church of Rosemont, and it was really an exciting day, just bringing folks together and celebrating this great man's life. Radnor Day Camp is open for registration, one of the biggest programs, the biggest program we run over the course of the year. That slide doesn't belong there. So Radnor Day Camp, it's, parents love it. Every year we get amazing feedback. We have a great staff that come back year after year. Not all of them, but most, like some of them. It's actually hard to sometimes hire the seasonal work back. But a lot of our senior leadership of the camp, Jean Evans, who is our current director, Megan Weaver-Horex, who runs our dance program, they've been around for many, many years. So Megan has actually been with us for 15 years, and Jean has been with us for 5. So great staff, amazing people. It's really a great camp. Registration's still open. We do accept scholarships. So if people are interested, please reach out. There's just some pictures from it. And we use the Radnor School District facilities, Radnor Elementary, Radnor Middle School, and Radnor High School, possibly this year for the pool. We're still working on that piece. Employment opportunities available. We have a great portion of our website if you jump out to it. Heather did an amazing job with this last year, bringing everything together electronically. The website tells a better picture, paints the picture a lot better than this stale slide, but it's very interactive. It shows all the steps and procedures and everything. Wizarding Camp is another big camp running this summer. I just learned today that all 3 weeks sold out. So we'll be taking a wait list. We're hoping next year we can maybe get a 4th week. And Tracy Kroom, who's one of our other program coordinators, she runs this program. She teaches this program as the headmistress, and she does an amazing job. She designs the entire curriculum, all the activities, and this has really been something that's been a great passion project for her, and it shows. I mean, we actually delivered at Hilltop Preparatory School. They've been a great partner in hosting us over there, and hopefully we can get a 4th week next year. There's definitely a demand for Harry Potter. We have Survivor Nature Camp happening this summer at the Willows. This is a program along with many others over the course of the year. We've been running with World Cup Sports Academy for 20 years. It's been a long-term relationship for us. The Survivor Nature Camp this summer I think 4 of the 8 weeks or 4 of the 7 weeks is sold out already. So people love it. They like to hike through the Skunk Hollow trails and eat their lunch, out by the bridge and, walk in the creek and things like that. And they have a good time. They really like it. Our winter basketball program's up and running. We have a great partnership also still with Radnor Youth Basketball. They use the Radnor Activity Center more than any other user in bulk. We have lots of great volunteers like Christina that make that program function, and we have a high level of interaction with them. These are just a couple of the other programs that we're running that are available. Again, I would just say jump out online. There's a lot of stuff. We've got a hiking upstream program. Skateboarding's really popular. Volleyball, tennis, and pickleball. We have champions programming for special needs kids. That's been fantastic and well received. Adult programs. Goat yoga is actually sold out. Believe it or not, it's the first time we're doing it. It's been on our list, our to-do list for a really long time. We have a pickleball tournament tomorrow. It's sold out too for St. Patty's Day. And that one's a fun one because everybody gets dressed up for St. Patrick's Day with face paint and, props. And then just in general, our pickleball program, both indoor and outdoor, has been really successful. And then on the tournament front, we do 3 a year. We do one around Halloween that's usually outdoors, and then we try to do one in December that's indoors, and then one in March that's indoors. And they've been very well received. Our Team Flashlight Egg Hunt is coming up next Friday. It's getting close to being sold out. That one's an exciting one, lots of great prizes. The Trout Derby sold out in 15 minutes. So that one, unfortunately, we're taking a wait list for. Sure, absolutely. So it's along the trail. So right at Wayne Art Center, we, down the trail on both sides. Oh, yeah, I remember that year. It was during COVID. So that was during COVID. We called them pop-up egg hunts, and we did one at Petrie, we did one at Radnor Nature, we did one at Odorriceo, and we just went out like on a Friday night, or Saturday, maybe it was a Friday, yeah, maybe it was a Friday night, and put a ton of eggs everywhere, because we really weren't doing a lot of programs then, because everything was sort of shut down. Wow. Well, we could consider getting back to that. Maybe playground egg hunts are something we could do. Maybe we'll incubate that. No. The plan's always fluid. It is always fluid. We just need a few more staff members. That's the only thing. They will kill me if I come back with a new idea, which I do tend to do, but we try to mix and match every year and, take things away, bring new things, as we go along. So a couple of other things just happening real quick. We have a statue dedication to Gertie Dunn. She was an accomplished lacrosse, field hockey, and golf standout in Delco. I think she's from Sharon Hill. She also played in the League of Her Own, the women's baseball team. In 1952, she was Rookie of the Year. We have a statue dedication on behalf of the Sports Legends of Delaware County that is going to happen here on the 23rd, and then it'll be open for public viewing the week of the 25th. So that's really exciting. If you go out this exit when you leave, you could see her Blue Sox rendition. It's a remake of her uniform. It's really fascinating. I'm sure everybody has seen A League of Their Own. I know I cry at the end of it every time I see it. No crying in baseball. It's touching. Emlyn Tennell, we're doing a 100-year celebration partnership with the United States Coast Guard Auxiliary. That's going to be happening on Friday, April 12th. It's open to the public, and we're going to be dedicating a new plaque to Emlyn Tennell. Really excited about that. Orienteering coming up, Wheels of Wayne. Odorriceo Music and Movie Night's going to be back. Clemacrone having a concert over there at the park, along with the visit from Mama and Papa Bear from the Berenstein Bears. And for those of you who want to take a look at all of our events, we have a web landing page directly for the events where Tracy's done an amazing job of laying this all out with little movable boxes that lets you jump to a web page to every single event. So it's a lot. And there's a lot of fun stuff. Hopefully there's something for everybody, and we're always looking for new ideas. So just hope that everybody has something to do, in their free time in Radnor. And that concludes my report.
Excellent job, Tammy. I have to say that we literally have something for everybody to do in every age group. So I think I speak for all of us by saying just phenomenal job on display. And the website looks awesome. It's very easy to use. I just forgot to register the boys for the egg hunt, so I hope that they can still get in. Maybe their board will help with that, but I forgot about those two guys, because they had a great time. All their friends were there. So I'm doing that right now on my phone. So is there any other comments you want to give to Tammy? Any other parts before we close? There's nothing else? Can I get a motion to close?
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you all very much.